Children's questions. Here they are. I'm going to have to listen myself to figure out what these are, but see if we can do it together. So the first one is, Jesus said, go into all the world and make blank. I think I know the answer to this one. Jesus said, go into all the world and make cupcakes. Pretty sure it's cupcakes. So, and my sound man's getting really excited about that version of the Bible, but we'll have to listen to find out whether I'm right or not. Number 2, true or false, the Apostle Paul said, don't get angry. So that's just true, that's what he said, or no, that's not what he said. Got that? 3 is fill in the blank. God isn't calling you to live blank lives on blank. He is calling you to live the life he has called you to every day, to practice it until you have perfected it. Got that? Ready to go? Okay. Many, many, many years ago, when I was a much younger man, my dad decided that we were going to take a family trip. We were going to go see my grandmother, who at the time was 96 years old, living in Ontario. Both of my grandmothers have since passed away. One at 102, the other at 107. My 96-year-old grandmother, the one we were going to visit, passed away at 102. But, it was one of those trips where you're going and you're going to probably, you don't know how long. At 96, who knows how long she's got left. So we were heading just to kind of maybe for the last time say goodbye. We weren't sure, but the whole family was going. Now, we got this wonderful idea. We told the family that we were flying in on Sunday. In actuality, we flew in on Thursday. And the idea was that we could get settled in our hotel rooms and, get all the things that needed to be done before all of a sudden family expectations started to be loaded on us. So we flew in on Thursday. By Saturday night, we were feeling pretty good. So we phoned Grandma up. And I should say, actually, before we even get there, my dad tripped about 2 weeks before our trip. He tripped before the trip. That's interesting. And being my father, he got himself up, brushed himself off, and kept on going. Because that's what men do. If you're not bleeding, you're not hurt. He wasn't bleeding. So 2 weeks pass. We're just getting closer to this time when we're going to see Grandma. And my dad's leg has turned black. Now, I'm not a doctor. But I think probably if you're a pale white guy whose leg is all of a sudden black, probably going to need to go see somebody. So the day before we're taking this trip, he goes into the doctor's office and finds out that, he's been walking around on a broken leg for 2 weeks. It was in place, but it was broken. And so the doctor said, we've got to at least get you into an air cast. So they got him into one of these air casts, and I get this phone call. He's in Calgary, I'm in Edmonton. I get this phone call saying, Garry, my leg's broken. Yes, we're still going on the trip, but I'm not going to be able to do all the stuff that I normally do. That's going to be up to you now. I'm going, okay, yeah, that's good. We can figure this out. So we fly down, get there, get everybody settled. Saturday night, we're going to call Grandma, see if she wants to go to church in the morning. So we phone her up, say, hey, Grandma, we're here. We'd love to take you to church in the morning. And she goes, I'm not going to church. Now, you have to understand, not normally what my grandmother would say. And we're going, well, why aren't you going to church? And she said, You'll know when you see me. We're going, okay, this is cryptic. And so we decided to phone my uncle to find out why my grandmother's not going to church. And of course, because we said we were flying in on Sunday, my aunt and uncle decided to go away for the weekend. So they were out of contact. We had to wait until Sunday to find out why grandma wasn't going to church. We went to church, then we went over to my grandmother's place, and she scurries out in her way. Yeah, I just had to know her. She scurried with this little cane, and she had done that ever since she had a stroke and needed the cane. Before that, she scurried without the cane. So grandma's scurrying out with this cane, and her face is purple and swollen. And we found out the week before she had fallen going down the ramp at the home going to church. And she just said, I don't want the church to see me like this. And I thought, yeah, you're right. 96 years old is way too young to admit that you have tripped down a ramp going to church. Yeah, I get that. You know, it's pride, right? But on that trip, I kind of thought about how fragile we are. And we are. It doesn't take much to set us off our game. There's an old adage, I'm sure the kids know it. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. One of the biggest lies I've ever heard. Names, language, often hurts more than sticks and stones. At least sticks and stones we will heal from. Names, we're often still suffering from, even when we get to my age. So, on Friday night, we had trunk or treat here. Anybody come to trunk or treat? Couple? Few people? Yeah. I hear we had some uninvited visitors here that night too. And they came to shout names at us. Okay. Here's the thing. God has called us to something. He has set a purpose in front of us. And we need to somehow make sure that nothing stops us from achieving that purpose. And sometimes somebody will set something in front of us to stop us. Sometimes it'll just be words, but we have to somehow figure out this whole idea of what we're supposed to be doing and where we're supposed to be going. So, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, go into all the world and make cupcakes. No. Disciples. Apparently I was wrong. Who knew? Go into all the world and make disciples. I'm setting a purpose in front of you. Go and accomplish that. Go and do that. The job is too important to let anybody stop us. No matter what it is, this is what we are supposed to be doing. And so we have set ourselves out to do just this. We are becoming people, a people, with a God-given purpose to change this world. And he has said, go and do this. We're in a study in Proverbs, and so I'm just going to read a couple verses from Proverbs 15. Here it is. Folly brings joy to one who has no sense. Folly brings joy to one who has no sense. But whoever has understanding keeps a straight course. A person finds joy in giving an apt reply. How good is a timely word. If you're trying to fill in the blanks, that first blank is just simply right words. So here's the question. What do you say when you're angry? And you're going, oh, you can't ask me that question. That's unfair. We all say stuff when we're angry. Maybe. So what do you say when you're angry? Are they the same words that come out of your mouth on Sunday morning when you're sitting praising God? Or are they different words? And I'm going to be honest with you here. My wife has a lot more problem with words that some people say than I do. I've heard a lot of it. I've heard a lot of it from you. And yeah, you have to be comfortable with what you say. I don't have to be comfortable with what you say. So, what is it that you say? What is it that you do? Paul in Ephesians says this, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are angry. And do not give the devil a foothold. Note, the verse does not say, do not get angry. Anger isn't always bad. Jesus was angry when he cleared the temple. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. Anger is often a motive to change. And we understand that. But what he did say was, in your anger, do not sin. Whatever it is that means, don't do it. In your anger, don't whatever. Again, our uninvited guests on Friday. I missed it. I was sick. It takes the year that I get sick to miss these things. One of the things that I heard was that, some people were going up and using some very colorful words with them. They weren't from us, don't worry. They were from the community. But at the same time, what is it you say when you're angry? Would they have known? A lot of the guys that I listened to when I was younger have fallen from their perch, top of Christendom. I think sometimes power has an effect on us, and it's not a good one. And some of these guys, one of these guys that I used to listen to a lot was a guy named Mark Driscoll. And Mark Driscoll was the co-founder of Mars Hill Church in Seattle. And it was just simply a different type of church. And at the time, I kind of liked listening to him and watching him. And actually, Acts 29 is his church planting group. And for a while, I was actually wondering when I planted VantagePoint if maybe we would go with Acts 29 just for a little while. I found out that I didn't agree on enough things with Mark to really take us down that path, especially when it came to women in ministry. But for a while, Mark had a flourishing ministry in Seattle. He still does, not in Seattle, but he had to fall and correct some things in his life before he could get back there. But early in the days, Mark was a different kind of pastor because he was a brand new Christian. So I heard Ed Stetzer interviewing Mark, and they talked a little bit about this. And one thing that Ed wanted to get to was his nickname. His nickname was the Cussing Pastor. And Mark went on to explain that when they were starting out, when the church was new, he was a brand new Christian and he was pastoring this church. And he really didn't know what he was doing, but he was considered to be an expert. And so he was given the opportunity to speak at a preacher's conference. He said, I didn't even know preacher's conferences existed. And now I'm being called in to speak at one. So he went in to speak at this preacher's conference and talk about church and culture. After that got him some attention, and a guy named Donald Miller wanted to come and talk to him and attend his church, and he was collecting some information for a book he was about to publish called Blue Like Jazz. And so apparently Mark took Donald out for lunch, and it was at this lunch that Mark swore. Mark says, apparently I swore. I don't remember it. Apparently I did. And now it's immortalized for all time in Donald's book. And thus he got the nickname, the Cussing Pastor. And as Mark's telling this story, you can tell he's embarrassed. This is like, a grade 7 picture that you really don't want anybody to see of yourself. Like, this is just something I don't need anybody to see. I don't want anybody to see this. But here it is in Donald Miller's best-selling book. And he says, that's not who I am. That was who I was then. And actually, I keep on coming back to the phrase that Mark uses, apparently I swore. It wasn't something that he even remembers. It was something that just slid out of his mouth in common conversation. And I think sometimes that's us as well. It's not that we mean to. It's just is what we do. In conversation, this is what we do. Mark says, let me get this right so I don't misquote him. His sanctification and holiness call him to something that is beyond that. So he says, I've been careful. I don't swear. I'm not the cussing pastor anymore. I don't do that. But there was a time when I was. There was a time when that's where my life had taken me. Paul says, in your anger, do not sin. Proverbs say, use timely words or use right words. And to be honest, what those words are might be different for all of us. But let me give you a little bit more than even that. The words you use when you're angry will often be the words that you've practiced when you're not. I was, not to toot my own horn here, it just really isn't, but I was setting up a basketball net with Sarah's mother, believe it or not. The two of us trying to set up a mobile basketball net in the basement of a church. And it was one of these plastic-based things with the metal pole and the net. And we're both struggling with this thing. And my finger got caught in the hole where this metal thing was going. And so if you've ever tried to do this, a finger and a metal pole and a plastic base don't all fit. And so as this metal pole is going down, my finger is still there. And it hurt. And I can remember I'm sitting here trying to get this thing in. The pole goes in, my finger's still there, and it hurt. And I went, and Sarah's mother looks at me and goes, that took a lot of discipline. And I'm going, not really. Sorry, the other language really isn't in my vocabulary. It wasn't something that I had practiced. So it didn't come out, even when I was in pain. Same is true for a lot of us. What we say in those times are the words that we practice. Let me continue. The Lord tears down the house of the proud, but he sets the widow's boundary stones in place. The Lord detests the thoughts of the wicked, but gracious words are pure in his sight. The greedy bring ruin to their households, but the one who hates bribes will live. The heart of the righteous weighs its answer, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. And that next blank is taking actions for good. Do you notice there's an action in every one of those? He sets the widow's boundary stones in place. He's honest even with the powerless. Gracious words are pure in his sight. Things that he says are gracious. The one who hates bribes will live. Again, this idea of truth and honor and doing what is right. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers. It doesn't gush out. It doesn't rush. It waits. It takes its time, so it gives a righteous response. And none of these are easy to do unless we are working at it. The Bible uses a lot of words describing what we're supposed to be. One of them is salt. We've talked about it a little bit. Salt is this white substance that we put on our food. And, if you're me, years ago, I don't use as much of it now, but I used to put a lot of it, especially on my French fries. Loved lots of salt on my French fries. My friends would say, do you want French fries with your salt? And I'd say, yes. Please, I'll have some French fries with my salt. But salt in the ancient world was for flavoring, but it was also for so much more. It was for preserving. It was used in making fertilizer. It was seen as a purifying agent. In fact, salt was so important that sometimes soldiers were paid in it. And that's where we get the phrase that he's worth his weight in salt. Because sometimes soldiers would be paid in salt. It was that important. And so Jesus comes and says, you know what, church? There's something so essential inside of you. So special that you need to understand that you are like salt to the world. Now, when I go to New York Fries and get my French fries, I don't want a single grain of salt dropped onto my French fries, right? I want salt shaker. I want lots of it. And he says, that's you, church. You are salt. There's many of you. You go and you flavor the world. You are change agents to the world. That's who you're supposed to be. You're supposed to make the world a better place, just like salt makes my fries better to eat. This is who you are. But he doesn't stop there. He says you're also light. You are the needed light that the world needs to see. When I am on vacation, especially, I like to read at night. And so I used to use a bit of a reader's light, and I try to hide it from my wife who's trying to sleep and very sensitive to the light. Now I'm reading an e-reader which has a light of its own, so I just tried to hide the e-reader. But light in a dark place, even a little light, shines. So this is who we are supposed to be. Again, let's go back to Friday night. In a dark world, we were out there with lasers and loud music, shining. Because the world needs it. The world needs our light. I also heard a rumor, and a lot of the stuff that I heard about Friday night, unfortunately, is all hearsay because I wasn't here. But I heard the story actually a couple times of a couple people who were saying, these are kids, who are saying, I'm not sure I want to go trunk or treat, or I don't want to go trick or treating, but I want to go trunk or treat. Why? Could it be because we're starting to learn to be light? I think it is. We are transforming the world the way that God has intended that we would do it. Last bit of verses from Proverbs. And I messed it up. There we are. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayers of the righteous. Light in a messenger's eye brings joy to the heart, and good news gives health to the bones. Whoever heeds the life-giving correction will be at home among the wise. Those who disregard discipline despise themselves, but the one who heeds correction gains understanding. And that next two blanks is a way of life. This is what God has always intended for his church, that we would make these things a way of life. This is the way we would be. In fact, and this sometimes messes us up, I know, but it was never intended that we would come and be Christians on Sunday and go and be worldly Monday to Saturday. The whole idea of Sunday is that we would come into this place among family, the family of God that is here, and that we would practice together what it means to be godly. So that when we leave this room, we can go out there and be the people that we practice being in here. We would go out there where maybe there's going to be some obstacles to us, that what we practiced in here where we were among friends and without obstacles. That was the plan. Somehow we've sometimes reversed that and thought, well, I'll dress myself up for Sunday, and that's all I need to do. In 1985, Bob Geldof, the lead singer for the Boomtown Rats, I Don't Like Mondays, was preparing for a concert that he had dreamed. It was called Live Aid. I'm a bit of a music guy, so I get kind of into this stuff. And so Live Aid had been planned, and it was going to be like the concert of concerts. It was going to have, a whole bunch of really big bands that were going to play at it. Bob had dreamt, and of course the Boomtown Rats would be there. The Who had signed on. Led Zeppelin said they'd be there. Bob Dylan was coming. George Thorogood was going to be there, basically because Jack Nicholson was the host, and he liked George Thorogood. So, George kind of reflected the roots of rock and roll. All the big people were going to be there. The concert was going to be held in two stadiums at once, Wembley in London and JFK in Philadelphia. And then it was going to be beamed out to other venues all over the world. Huge concert raising money for the Ethiopian famine. 8 million people had been affected by the famine. 1.2 million had died. And basically, Geldof just said, we've got to do something. I don't know what we can do, but we've got to do something. And so they raised money for the famine. All these groups were going to donate their time to come and play at Live Aid. There was one band that was missing. And that one band was missing because Geldof thought that they were losers. Not quite. He felt that their time had come and passed, that they were done. He didn't like them, and so when people suggested that this band should be invited, he'd politely say, no, I don't think so. But as the date got closer, pressure mounted, and finally Geldof said, okay, we'll invite them to come. And so he started out sending out the invitation, the band. The problem was that the band had just come off a grueling world tour. They were all worn out. The lead singer was off trying to record a solo album. And trying to get them was just going to be a bit of a problem. The band was Queen. And so Geldof finally phones Roger Taylor, the drummer for Queen, and says, listen, Roger, we're doing this concert thing. I've got The Who, I've got Bob Dylan's coming, got a whole list of people that are coming. Would you guys like to be part of it? And Taylor apparently told him, look, it doesn't really sound like our kind of thing, but talk to Freddie. So Geldof left a message for Freddie Mercury to phone him. A few days later, the phone on his desk rang. Geldof picked it up, and this voice on the other end said, so, what's going on, darling? And Bob said, Freddie, got a concert. Wondering if you guys want to be part of it. And Geldof knew right from the start that he wasn't speaking the same language. By this time, he was kind of committed to at least trying to get Queen to come. And so he said, listen, Freddie, this stage was built for you. Nothing like giving a guy a little bit of an ego boost. Nobody can fill this one better than you, Freddie. You got to come. And so Freddie said, okay, we'll be there. 20 minutes on stage. They gave the set list. I missed a quote from Geldof. Here's his quote. I was asked to call them, Queen, and get them to do it. Frankly, I didn't care, because if you want one word to explain why punk happened, it was them. The group's increasingly lavish productions during the mid-1970s had made them one of the acts many punk acts singled out for turning rock and roll into a bloated parody of itself. Yeah. Don't hold back, Bob. So they got together a set list: Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, which was a song that Queen had played at every concert. As far as I'm aware, they, after 1984 until Freddie died, they played Radio Gaga at every concert. A Hammer to Fall, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, We Will Rock You, and We Are the Champions. In an effort for, reality, authenticity, I actually went back and listened to their 20 minutes on the stage this week. They came in and started off with Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody is a long song, and it's a hard song. So basically, they played the first movement of the song. They didn't do the whole thing, just the first little bit. And from there, they went right into Radio Gaga. And they did that song. And then the band quit, and Freddie Mercury walked towards the front of the stage. Bob Geldof at this point was in the upper level of Wembley Stadium heading for the BBC office that was up there. And all of a sudden, Freddie Mercury walks to the front of the stage and goes, "Hey-oh." Somebody liked it. And they responded, "You're right. That's exactly what they did." And then he went, "Hey-oh." And they responded. And then he did a little bit of a run. And the audience responded. Bob is up listening to this. And he's utterly amazed. Because Queen is making a connection with the audience that he didn't think they could make. 45 seconds was the time that Freddie Mercury took to do these vocalizations with the crowd echoing every time he did it. 45 seconds out of the whole concert. And yet it's become known as the note that was heard around the world. And when the concert was over, it was that 45 seconds that everybody was talking about. What happened? What is even more amazing is that this was not a Queen audience. This wasn't a bunch of Queen fans that had come to see Queen. By the time Queen signed on the dotted line and said they'd be there, the event had been sold out for weeks. Nobody was there to see Queen. Geldof was convinced they could never connect with this crowd, and yet they did. The band didn't know Freddie was going to do this, although they knew that he had the ability to do it. Freddie just did it. Here's the thing. Freddie was an incredible musician. He woke up a musician. He lived his day as a musician. He went to bed as a musician. The vocalizations that he gave to the audience that day were probably just the same things he went through several times a day as he warmed up his voice. Nothing new. This was what he had practiced. It was who he was. He connected with an audience because he was authentic to who he was and what he did. And that's all the audience needed to know. It's the same message that Proverbs has for us. Our life as God-fearing Christians is not something that we put on. It's not something that we believe on Sundays. It's something that we do. It is who we are. It's what we need to be. God isn't calling you to live pretend lives on Sundays. He is calling you to live the life He has called you to every day, to practice it until you have perfected it. We read that again, especially for the kids who are sleeping right now. God isn't calling you to live pretend lives on Sundays. He's calling you to live the life He has called you to every day, to practice it until you have perfected it. That's what He wants from us. We practice while we are here. We gather ourselves together. We leave this building and we become Christ out there. Because it's who we are. It's all we can do. It's what comes naturally because that's how long we've practiced it. We don't love people because we're commanded to. We love because we've rehearsed it and it has become who we are. If you want to be a pessimistic person, you can practice that and you'll be it. Trust me, I was for quite a while. I've practiced that. I can do that. I don't think that's what God's calling me to be. He's calling me to be something different. Let me read those last words again. The Lord is far from the wicked, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. Not just the momentarily righteous, but those who are practicing this and making it into a life calling. The light in a messenger's eyes brings joy to the heart, but good news gives health to the bones. We are the bearers of good news because we've practiced it. Whoever heeds life-giving correction will be at home among the wise. Those who disregard discipline despise themselves, but the one who heeds corrections gains understanding. This is the way we are to live our life, so that it comes naturally to us wherever we are. We're going to celebrate communion this morning, and we're going to come and serve it to you. And sometimes the ritual of it sometimes frustrates me because I think we get the wrong message from it. You've heard me say before. So, this is the body of Christ broken for you. This is the blood of Christ shed for you. And it is a note of sacrifice. It is a note of who we are because God has come. God has made a difference. We are forgiven because of the sacrifice that Jesus has made. And so we celebrate this. But we don't take the next step. Why do we do this so often in worship? Because God's intention was that this wasn't going to stop here. It was going to continue with you. Just as Jesus came to break his body, so we will break ours for the world. We will put ourselves in uncomfortable positions because God loves the world. And he is sending us out into it. God gave his life for us. And his hope was that the church would continue and give their lives for the world as well. That we would practice it on Sundays and live it Monday to Saturday. Let me pray. Father, we ask that you would take this time of communion as we share your body and blood, that you would remind us that this is who you have called us to be, that you love us so much, that you gave your life for us with the hope that we would love the world and want them to be part of your kingdom to the point where we would go and be uncomfortable with them. God, we know that you have called us to be the influencers, not the influenced. And so we ask that you would give us strength to do just that, to influence people for you to help them to understand your love for them and our love for them because of Christ. That we would bring glory to your name. And that the world would see you through us. This is our prayer. This is our hope. And we just ask that you would come and help us achieve that. We pray this in the name of your precious Son, Jesus. Amen.